Welcome to this deep dive, tailored just for you. Today, we're really immersing ourselves in a fascinating story, one that's all about the power of music.
Absolutely. We're looking at Justine d'Axien, une symphonie de défi et de révérence, 𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗡𝗞𗔥 TATANKA. It's an article sketching out this Parisian love story that's just deeply woven with music, resistance, and, memory.
Okay, let's unpack this. So, our mission here is to explore how Justine and Joris first connected, through their love of music and how that shaped their lives, their resistance during the occupation of Paris in World War II, and ultimately the legacy of their passion.
And what's really striking from the start is how this connection, sparked by something, well, relatively simple like a pathophony, grew into something much bigger than just their personal relationship.
Right, it became a kind of force.
Exactly, a kind of quiet but powerful cultural stand against oppression.
So let's set the scene. We're 1920s Paris. First, there's Justine. She's described as single, independent, very modern.
Yeah, and with this real fascination for mechanical things, especially her pathophone.
And the scene is Montparnasse, which was, buzzing with artists and writers back then.
And the article makes it clear when Justine played her 78s, it wasn't performative. It wasn't to draw a crowd.
It was for her.
It was deeply personal, like she was conducting her own private symphony just for herself.
Okay. And then there's Joris. He enters the picture. A known musician, a committed socialist.
And his music apparently really reflected the times, the sort of weight of the post-war era, the anxieties, the hopes all mixed together.
And his first impression of Justine, it wasn't about her appearance, was it?
No, that's what's interesting. The article highlights that he was struck by the way she handled the music, the machine, almost sacredly.
Like she had a deep respect for it.
Exactly. She wasn't just passively listening. She was like actively engaged with the sound and the technology producing it.
So their first conversation, it sounds like it just happened very organically.
It seems so. It started with the records, the pathophone, but quickly moved deeper. Composers, movements, meaning.
And then beyond music.
Yeah, into philosophy, politics, art, all apparently under the Parisian moonlight. Sounds quite romantic, actually.
It really shows how music can be that starting point for, well, a much deeper connection, doesn't it?
But
Discussing maybe jazz, Debussy, even daddyism.
right, building this shared understanding, this foundation.
And that connection seems to have intensified pretty fast. The article mentions a spontaneous embrace by the Sen.
Precisely. And then Justine's line, "You are going to take me home." It wasn't a question.
No, quite assertive, confident.
Definitely. Affirming that bond they'd already formed. And that night in her loft, surrounded by records, instruments, scores, that was clearly a turning point, a kind of silent agreement through music.
Her apartment sounds like quite the place. High ceilings, but also dust and chrome. Absinthe glasses and blueprints.
Silk robes and a motorcycle helmet.
Ah, yeah. A real mix.
Yeah.
It embodies those contradictions, doesn't it?
Yeah. It really does. It paints her as someone embracing all the complexities of that modern world. And then the next morning, this is telling.
What happened?
She plays this Polish violin sonata, something Joris had only mentioned briefly the night before.
Wow. So she was really listening, paying close attention.
Incredibly attentive. It just shows the depth of understanding that sparked between them almost immediately.
And the article stresses their bond was unique,
Inseparable, yeah.
but also fiercely independent.
Right. It wasn't about possessing each other. It was about growing together through reflection, through shared ideas.
Which you see in their intellectual life, right?
Yeah.
Reading Baudelaire, Marx, Colette together.
And debating everyone from Stravinsky and Picasso to Saint-Simon and the Futurists, a real meeting of minds.
And they didn't always agree, did they? Like Justine seeing poetry in machines.
While Joris saw the violin as, what was it, a machine for the soul.
Right. But that difference seems to have fueled their connection, not hindered it.
Exactly, that intellectual sparring. And you picture them wandering Montmartre, the Latin Quarter, hitting cafes, maybe even some anarchist meetings. They were really engaged with the city's pulse.
And then back home, the article paints this intimate picture dancing barefoot to the pathophone, Joris improvising on his violin.
A beautiful blend of the mechanical and the purely human, the personal.
Then there's Justine's proposal, or a rather non-proposal. No marriage, just living together.
Which Joris just accepts. It really highlights how unconventional they were, prioritizing their shared life over social norms.
We also hear about their travels. Berlin, Tangier, Vienna. And that anecdote about Justine confronting a fascist.
And Jar just backing her up, completely supportive. It shows their shared core values, her spirit.
And then that description of them aging, she's like obsidian, he's like parchment.
It's quite poetic, isn't it? Captures their contrasting essences, but also the enduring strength of their bond over time.
Okay, so let's shift forward. 1942. Paris is under German occupation. The atmosphere is completely different.
Yeah, heavy, somber, oppressive. A stark contrast to the vibrant 20s.
And this is when things take a dark turn for them personally. Jaurès is arrested.
Right. Because of his politics, his socialist views, and his music, which the occupiers considered subversive, it's a silencing.
A reflection of the broader crackdown happening across the city.
Absolutely. But Justine, her response is remarkable. She stays in Paris.
She doesn't flee.
No. And she starts this nightly ritual, playing recordings of Ďura's violin solos on her pathophone. Loudly.
Loud enough for the neighbors to hear.
Exactly. It wasn't just for her comfort. It was a deliberate act, making his silenced music audible again, pushing it out into the occupied city.
So her apartment becomes this kind of hub.
Yeah.
A beacon.
Pretty much a clandestine center of cultural resistance. Every night, that music was a reminder of something universal, something the occupiers couldn't completely crush. Art's endurance.
It's such a powerful image. Using art, specifically music, as a form of quiet defiance, a peaceful weapon.
It truly is. It transforms the personal act of listening into a public statement of resistance. It's about preserving identity, hope through culture.
It speaks volumes about her character and their shared commitment, refusing to let the music die even when he's gone.
It's incredibly moving. It underlines the resilience, the power of art to sustain people in the absolute worst of times.
And then, somehow, Jaurès returns. Miraculously.
Yeah, the article describes him as emaciated, thinner, and gray. Clearly marked by the ordeal.
But he finds Justine. How?
Unchanged, essentially. Still there, in the apartment, and a record is playing. The music continued.
That reunion must have been intense.
The article calls it a long embrace that seemed to bend time. It really emphasizes the continuity, the strength of their bonds, surviving that awful separation and hardship. The music, her presence, it was all still there.
So they pick up their lives together, living on until the 1970s.
Yes, in that same apartment near Rue de Martyrs, it remained their sanctuary, filled with music.
And their life view, shaped by all they went through. It seemed to be reflected in how they lived, right? Let's focus on material things.
Definitely. All those travels, their experiences, it led them to see art not as something to be owned, but as a common good, something shared.
And that intellectual energy never faded. Still discussing Baudelaire, Marx, Picasso.
Absolutely. Their home remained this vibrant space for ideas, for aesthetics. Each record, each book, it was all part of their ongoing conversation with the world and with each other.
It really reinforces that core idea, doesn't it? That music connects across time, across borders.
And unites people. Their story taps into something fundamental about how art shapes our lives and relationships.
And the article suggests that their story itself became part of a collective memory.
Yeah, for music lovers, for people interested in cultural resistance, they became sort of symbolic figures.
And the pathophone. It becomes more than just an object.
Oh, absolutely. It's the symbol of their love, their shared world, and, crucially, their resistance. It holds their entire story, in a way.
So looking back at Justine Jaurès's journey, it's clear their musical connection wasn't just a starting point. It was the force that sustained them.
Through everything. Love, war, time itself. It blossomed into this incredibly resilient bond.
And their story really does highlight how significant music can be. It's not just background noise, is it?
Not at all. It's a catalyst for connection, a tool for defiance, a way we hold on to memories. It's active. It's vital.
Their dedication, symbolized by that pathophone, always playing. It's a powerful reminder, I think, of the strength we can find in art and in human connection.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. Which brings us to you, listening. This deep dive into Justine's symphony, maybe it prompts a reflection.
Yeah, think about how music has shaped your own life, your relationships, your memories. What's your pathophone? What object or maybe what song brings people together for you or holds those precious moments?
Justine Jaurès's story is an invitation, really, to consider the power of sound and shared passions in your own narrative.